Hello and welcome to Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life. This is Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Johanna. Hey, Johanna.
Hi, Jared.
What are we going to talk about today?
Picking the right school for you.
Picking the right school for me.
Yes. No, like as a teacher, like where should you teach? How do you make sure you put yourself in a ripe, fruitful soil?
The place that will hire me?
No.
Oh.
Well, I mean, yes, they do want to hire you, but no, not the first place necessarily.
Isn't it hard to get a job?
No.
Okay.
No. It can feel very hard to get a job because of the way it works. But if there's a teacher shortage, right? Shocker. People don't want to become teachers. And then the way it works with teaching is they want to put you under contract right away, and then you're stuck. Depending on your state, you're either super stuck, or you're a little bit stuck, or it's just not the same. If you get a job in your world and you don't like it, like you got to stay there a couple of months probably, but then you can get yourself out and there's no stigma. It wasn't a good fit for you and you move on.
Yeah.
That is not how it works in education. Like, it is like a prison sentence, so you better like the prison that you attach yourself to.
Well, for a year.
Yes, but teaching in an environment that is horrible, I mean, one day can feel like a year.
Okay, like a prison.
Yeah.
So teaching is like prison. Both are run by the state. So what you're saying is...
It is better to get your teaching degree in waitress or bartend and substitute to find the right school for you.
Yeah, substitute's a real easy choice, right?
Well, no, I'm not saying it's easy, but yeah, it is easy because you
can do it exactly as much as you can put up with.
And it is a great way to find the school district and the school and the people that feel right.
Because what hasn't happened is in response to the general teacher shortage, we haven't raised salary or benefits until such time as we have more volunteers for people wanting teaching jobs than we need. That hasn't happened.
Your worst case scenario.
Because it's all kind of, I mean, there's local controls and stuff, but largely it's determined by state funding. So the teacher shortage is kind of general. So really, your best time, you're not going to get paid a ton more one way or the other. It's not like someone's going to bid $80,000 instead of $40,000 just because they think you're great. They don't have that flexibility if they wanted to.
Correct.
So you're shopping for a district where you're going to like working.
No, a school.
A school where you're going to like working.
Yes.
And this is your time. Because once you're in, then your incentives change to try and keep going with it. And it becomes, you definitely can't leave in the middle. So
it's very rare to find a state where you can leave in the middle and that not be a game changer for trying to find additional teaching positions.
And then even at the end of the year, it's realistically, you're never going to have a better time than when you're trying to find that job in the first place to find the right one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And you just spent 4 years or 5 years getting this degree. And so, yeah, there is a huge want to just take that first job that gets offered to you. But I see too many teachers live at that job for a couple of years and then they can't do it.
And they quit.
And they quit and then they quit teaching altogether.
Right.
That could have all been prevented by learning. Those first couple of years are so important. You know, if you have 10 years experience and you move to a new state, like if you and I picked up and moved to a new state, I know what to look for when I interview. And I'll know what will feel right because I've experienced it feeling right and I've experienced it feeling wrong. But also, my teaching gut can handle a bad teaching year.
Yeah, you could do a year in prison without falling apart.
Yeah, because I've been seasoned. I've done time before.
I mean,
it's not my first time in.
you'd leave as soon as you could, but you know you could handle it at this point.
Yeah, I could not have handled it in my first 3 years, maybe even my first 5. Now it's almost like I would be interested in seeking it. Like now I'm curious about going to schools and making them better. I'm curious about going to students who need something better and working with those students, but it's because I can handle it.
And even then you'd want to make sure that the people running the school were going to let you do what needed to be done.
I would, yes. But I'm more willing to play that game with helping motivate parents. I just have a lot more resources available to me mentally to manage teaching in an environment that isn't conducive. But people think they can find a conducive environment if they just go to a rich school district and work there. And I do not think money has anything to do with this.
Okay.
Yeah, should we dive in?
Yeah, but mini recap.
Yes.
This is for new teacher hatchlings, fresh off of their student teaching, looking for their first job for the most part.
Or I don't really like teaching and I'm ready to get out. This is me trying to make something of this career for myself.
So before you start or before you quit.
Yes.
Here's how you find a place where you're not going to want to quit.
Yeah.
Okay. Lay it on me.
Okay.
Go to the rich place.
No.
No. Okay. What do I do?
I would say do not take a job.
Deal.
Unless
Got it. Do not take a job.
Unless you've been in the school where you will teach.
Okay. Why?
And preferably even in your classroom.
I mean, it sort of makes sense, but should it really matter? School? You already said it did, but
it does.
School to school within a certain district, aren't they all run with the same resources and philosophy?
Large districts will want you to sign a contract and be hired, and you don't know what school you're going to, and you don't know what classroom you're going to, and talk about taking, you are literally just rolling some dice on whether fate will look kindly upon you or not.
Because the principal matters too much, or what?
The principal matters way too much. If you are someone that is not extremely confident in your craft of teaching, the principal matters so much. And research will say, there's books and papers that say that this is true. This is not just Johanna speak, although it is, in my experience, also true. Should we dive into how do you get that? So let's say they offer you a contract, because I'm not saying don't interview places where you can't get in. But if they offer you a contract...
This is Art at the Deal here by Johanna.
Yeah. If they offer you a contract, before you sign it, take a day off from where you're currently at, or take 2 days off. Pick a couple of random buildings and ask if you can go observe for 20 minutes in a school will let you get a feel or a sense of it. And so let's say a district has 50 elementary schools. If you randomly pop in to 10 and all 10 give you kind of the same good feeling, well then, okay, that's a fair roll of the dice situation. Even if you get one bad year at one bad school, which would be horrible, at least you know within the same district there's transfer.
Right. There's something good there that you could get to.
Options. Yeah, don't sign a contract if you have not gotten exposure into an actual school with actual students in it to just sense it.
So as the world's second most skilled educator, they all look the same to me.
Oh.
So
they look the same. You have to be in them with kids.
So how would I know? Could I tell?
I think after this podcast you'd be able to tell,
okay.
Which is why we should include that this podcast then would be a good podcast for parents. Like, and
see whether
picking
the
a school.
schools run well.
Yeah.
All right, there you go, parents. All of you non-educators listening, we know you're out there.
Actually, they are.
I know.
It's weird. I'm a little...
It's not weird. It's great. You should do it.
It is great. It is great. I love that they are so invested in their kids.
It's weird because we didn't envision that when we started,
We didn't.
but it's great.
It is.
Okay, you think so? Because of what I've learned from talking to you, I know kind of the things to look for. But could you give a real quick overview of like what you would be afraid to see and what you'd be excited to see on those observation days?
Okay. A school should feel more like a house and less like a hospital. Do you know how when you go to the emergency room and it's the kids' emergency room, how it just feels like welcoming inside? You're like, oh, like you see people smiling and it feels relaxed and calm, and there's not some naughty kid sitting there that looks scared out of their wits. If there's a kid in the office, they're also relaxed and friendly. Like, everyone should feel relaxed and friendly. And when you go into an environment that's like the ER on the adult side, it oftentimes does not feel relaxed and friendly. It feels very clinical. It feels like you're all of a sudden there's something in you that you like guard is up. Like, I need to pay attention. I need to take care of myself. This is a place that takes care of problems. You do not want a school that you walk in and you feel like this is a place that takes care of problems.
And I need to take care of myself. I was just thinking that yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you feel in the emergency room, is like, I got to make sure I'm looking out for me and like no one like gets in front of me or doesn't give me what I need. Yeah, I said, I'm not describing it super well, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
You should walk into a school and feel like this is a place that takes care of emotional well-beings. This is a place that takes care of children. Even at the high school, it's not that it won't feel elementary, but it won't feel like this is a place that takes care of problems. It will feel like this is a place where learning happens. Like there's like just an ease in the building. There's a relaxed sense in the building. And that is crucial, because that tells you about a whole bunch of things you can't see. I mean, human instinct is extremely good.
Right.
And so you got to trust your human instinct response to the building.
Because there won't be ease if people are constantly on edge that something might go wrong soon.
Yeah, it can feel excited. It can feel intense. It can feel like, whoa, there's a lot going on here. But it's like a positive intensity. It shouldn't be like it shouldn't feel like you could have just as many problems. You could have more problems in an environment that feels relaxed and like a house.
Well, like the DMV is a negative one.
You know what? The last time at the DMV, there was a lady that came around and is like, do you know what you need? Is there anything else I can get you? It took her like 5 minutes. She went through hundreds of people. And it did kind of put everyone who was waiting, like, there were 68 other people in line before us. And it did make me feel like, that's okay. I'm just waiting in line. Like, it wasn't, I have to give the DMV that.
I think they've worked specifically on that to try and improve that.
Well, they did a good job.
Like, they've got videos running now of like how to smile in your driver photo so you don't look good or so you don't look bad, and like inviting you to have it retaken if you want. Like, someone has focus grouped our DMV or consulted with them and said, this is why everyone hates you, and these are the things you need to do to not be hated.
All right. Well, yes. Anyway, trust your
instinct. But a normal
instinct.
DMV is like, everyone else here is just 100% in this for themselves on both sides of the counter.
Yes.
And I have to make sure.
Who knows what germs I could come away from.
I need to get what I need
and get
with
out.
my own resources and get out. Yeah. And everybody else here is doing the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good. So that's why do not take a job. Do not sign a contract. You can have them offer you a contract, but do not sign that contract until you are in the school. And ignore things like that wall needs painted or that poster's not hung well. Don't focus on the energy. Do you feel relaxed? Does everyone act relaxed? Or do you feel on edge?
The zeitgeist.
Yes. Okay, if you teach, though, a specific content that requires a room that is important.
Like art or anatomy or PE or like that. Am I thinking of the right things? Music.
Yes, any of those courses.
Chemistry.
Even kindergarten requires, like, it would make a really big deal if my kindergarten room didn't have a bathroom in it. If I taught a high school course where I knew what I taught required certain ventilation, or like we make a mess here, how easy is it to clean my mess? Then you need into the actual room. And again, if you're signing a contract and you don't know which building you're in,
go to a bunch of them
and ask to see their rooms, and at least the dice roll is a little bit better. I mean, even in our district, there's like a classroom or two I wouldn't want to teach in.
So you're saying the facilities aren't really important unless it's a specific classroom need?
Yeah, but even then, if you go visit a school and all you need is a general classroom, well, it's helpful to see the general classroom, but
it doesn't matter that much?
It doesn't. I've taught on a cart. It's not the end. I've taught on a cart and enjoyed where I taught. It was fine. But if it matters that you have a sink, you better find out whether most of the classrooms are equipped with a sink.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I see the spirit. I see the specific equipment if I need it. I'm done?
No. Okay, so hopefully you can narrow down a little bit more about the school, or maybe even if you sign a contract with a district, you get a little bit more choice in which school you go to. The next thing that can be a huge benefit is at the elementary, how active is the PTO?
How are you going to know that?
You're going to have to ask the principal or the other teachers.
When the principal misrepresented?
Okay, that's fair. You're going to want to ask things like, how many parents participate in the PTO? What kind of events does the PTO offer? Like, I'm just curious. Tell them, can I find, or don't even ask. Go Google it. Like, if a lot of them will have Facebook pages. Like, it's not about the PTO. It's not about whether the PTO raises a lot of money. It's how active are these parents in their kids' lives. That soil is a lot easier for a teacher who needs.
When you're starting off and you're at risk of burning out right away, you're having an active, engaged PTO really lowers that risk.
Having parents that will volunteer in your classroom. Yes. They don't need to have 2 pennies to rub together. But if they desperately care about their kids and the random small amounts of time that they do have, they put towards a PTO, that saves.
It's a really good sign too.
Worse, you can go to very affluent schools and it's like, well, the nanny does pickup and nanny does drop off. Like, our PTO has a lot of money, but we don't there's not a whole lot of meeting and organizing, and that also can present. Like,
iPads are great and stuff, but really the thing you're looking for is an indication of parental engagement.
Correct.
Why don't we have a nanny do pickups and drop offs?
We don't make enough money. And I'm not that type of parent.
So see the Patreon link below in the podcast notes so that I can stop picking up and dropping off my kids.
You do a great job of dropping off the kids in the morning.
If you give us many thousands of dollars through the Patreon link, then we can record the same number of podcasts, but I can be happier during them.
I don't even know what that is. There is no link. Okay, secondary, you want to find out how well attended concerts, sporting events, plays, things like that are. Again, you could find out this information online.
But same basic principle.
Are
the parents engaged?
If a bunch of people show up for the show choir competition stuff, then the parents are engaged.
Okay. Do they not have PTOs at high schools?
I haven't run across one.
Why the difference?
Well, part of it is natural. The kid needs to start learning to be independent. You got to start cutting off those. There's times when a parent needs to be involved. That's when a kid slips up. whether it's academically or socially or behaviorally. But otherwise, kids need to really start to be trusted to start to manage their own worlds a little bit more, so the PTO is not as involved. Or it
Because
doesn't
the kids
exist.
can do similar stuff themselves.
Yeah,
then.
the kids it's the kids are taking over more of those roles.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, the third thing that I have is find out how long the paraprofessionals or the associates or the secretaries or the janitors or the custodial staff, all that support staff, the lunch ladies, how long they have been there, I think is a key.
Because they're more like traditional they're on contract too, but they don't have the same.
They do not. They are oftentimes not on contract.
Okay. So if they don't like it, they'll leave.
If they don't like it, they will leave. And because they're more of a bot, like you'll get a teacher like me in a school that might not be as good, and I'll stay and be there for a long time because there's a lot of financial incentives for me to stick it out.
Right.
And I probably manage my world enough that if the principal's bad, I just ignore that principal until we get a new one. Whereas, like, the staff that the kids will take out their frustrations on will leave. And so if there's bad administration, those most able to leave will.
Right.
So just because they've been there
or with the least incentive to stay.
Yeah. Like, it means that they enjoy what they're doing because otherwise they would go do it somewhere else.
Sure.
Yeah. And you as a brand new teacher, you're going to need support and care.
It's like looking at the fish's eyes.
The fish's eye. Oh, yeah.
This way the fresh fish has the head on, even though it's gross. It's because the very first thing to go when the fish stops being fresh are the eyes. They get cloudy. So if you see clear eyes on the fish, then it's clear eyes, full belly, you can't lose.
If
you see cloudy eyes, but losing your support staff is the like cloudy eyes of a rotten school.
If they go through a new study hall associate every couple of months, danger, Will Robinson, get on out.
Okay.
And a lot of this, again, you can find online, or you can ask teachers. I wouldn't ask the principal that one. Again, if you can't interview at your school, when you get into the schools, do your sample and start asking around.
All right.
Okay. The fourth one is a tricky one, but I think it's important. And what I ask when I am meeting new administrators.
Yes.
I want to know what they envision a day in the life of their job to be.
You ask the principal what they think they should do.
Yeah. What's your perfect day? What's your dream day look like? What's a day in the life of you at your job look like?
That's fun because that's like a common interview question. Is what was your best day at your current position? Or what's your best day look like?
Sure.
Because you turn it around on them. Smart. I'm going to steal that.
Well, it tells you a lot, right? I bet. It tells you would be shocked what some people will tell you their day is like, and you go, "Oh, you and I will not. This will not be a good fit."
There's a little tidbit though from for the non-teachers that we were talking about earlier. Hey, bonus. That's probably a good. Do you have any questions for us at the end of the interview question?
Yeah.
I like that. I'm writing it down. You talk.
And so that for you should tell you whether if they describe what you want to see in an administrator, then it's a good fit. And if they describe what you would not want to see in an administrator, then that's not a good fit. And you and I might have, whoever is listening, we might have vastly different answers on what we want to hear. But do
you have any suggestions for hatchling teachers at what they should want to hear? Just very, very generally.
Talking about being in the classroom, not meeting with teachers, but observing teachers teach or being in the classroom or being in the halls or being around the kids. I think it I mean, this is another one. Okay, well, this is another one.
They're not going to say it
list.
quite so boldly, but what you don't want is someone who is. And I'm reducing this, but well, nothing goes wrong, so no one gets sent to my office, and I don't have to have any interruptions for the whole day.
Yes,
like that's the wrong kind of attitude.
Yes,
They're thinking upside down about what should be good.
Yes.
Okay. What were you saying?
I don't know what I was saying. Oh, I do know what I was saying. Okay, so when you visit schools, if you get the opportunity to talk to kids, the question I would ask them about is, tell me about your principal.
Okay.
Or tell me about the administration, or tell me about the people who run this school.
Wouldn't that be the principal?
Well, but different. I mean, right? You could go to a building that's got 3,000 kids in it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, so essentially, if you hold up a picture of an administrator and the kid is like, I don't know who that is. Danger, run away,
side.
Run away. Like, really, a good school for me should be that if it's a school with 1,000 kids or less, I should be able to pick out 50 children, and that principal should be able to tell me about at least 10 of them.
Sure.
Right? Like, if that principal is really in the classroom, because you don't want a principal that micromanages, but you also don't want a principal that all they do is attend meetings all the time or make teachers attend meetings all the time. I mean, they're there to help kids learn, and that teaching is messy. Good leadership is messy. And you are going to have kids that their world falls apart, and it's not necessarily that the principal is solving the problem, but the principal does have a role in figuring out what the problem is and figuring out what resources to reallocate to get that child this help that they need so they can learn.
So they need to be at the correct distance from that?
Yes.
Not too in the weeds, but not too distant from it in an ivory tower to have good field vision of how the school should be run, and that requires the right amount of engagement in classroom or with students.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, at an elementary level, every parent should be able to identify from a photo lineup who the administrators are.
Yeah.
And I would maybe even at a second, elementary, a principal should do things like a couple of times a week, they are running the car line. They should a couple of times a week be in the lunchroom. A couple of times a week, they should be out at recess. They should have a pulse on their building. And if no one knows what they look like, then they actually have no clue and they're not running anything.
Because they have no idea how the rubber meets the road.
None.
Because the only way they know, the only way they know about what's going on in the building is they're told what's going on in meetings, and that's absurd.
You would be surprised how many principals, what they know about their school is what they are told in meetings.
Yeah.
And that is not a school I want my child in.
And I wonder how many bosses generally are like that.
Well, I mean, I'm not describing anything different than your world. You don't want your boss to come in and tell you specifically how to do your job. That's why you're hired. But you do want your boss to know what it is that you do, what challenges you face, what successes you have. You want your boss to be someone that you can turn to when it feels like it is too much. And your boss will know what trainings, what resources, what do I need to do to support Jared so he can move forward successfully.
Yeah, it sounds all very lovey-dovey. Really what I want, though, is, I don't want micromanaged, but I want good understanding of generally what I'm doing and what other people are doing, so that when the boss needs to make a decision, the decision's good.
Well, imagine
when you need to apply judgment or allocate resources or whatever, that those decisions are made based upon a good understanding of the way things are, and not because of whoever got there first or tricked the boss the best. Like, that's the main thing you want.
One of the most important things that a principal does is allocate resources for where time goes and has a firm understanding of overall where the learning trajectory is going. And that is hard if they're only ever collecting data by what is handed to them in a meeting.
Right.
Because it's not potentially real.
Figures lie and liars figure.
Sure.
I mean, it could be real, but it's just...
It could be.
It's easy to be not.
Yeah. Teachers are too busy. The amount of time that they have to allocate or to express what they need, and then the principal's like, well, do you really need time or attention? Do you really need it? Anyway. Okay. So...
This has been Principal Talk.
Yeah,
The
Principal
podcast
Talk.
on being the best principal.
Yes. Okay, I have another one, a question to ask in the interview process.
Okay.
So I would want to ask, what defines me being a successful teacher in your district, at your school? And they'll give you some like answer about the standards and the teaching obligations and blah, 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 blah. But have them dive a little deeper. What are some examples that you would want to see? If you came in and observed my classroom, what would define me being successful?
Okay. And what are you looking for?
If they focus on behavior, I would be worried.
Okay.
So, because from their perspective, anytime you start a school, and this includes me too. When you go into a new environment at a new school, you are going to be more of a burden to your administrative staff than someone that's been there a while. You're going to have more behavior problems than someone that's been there a while. That is just the fundamental truth of being new at a school. And if they think that that's not going to happen, then that's not going to be a good environment for you, because then they're essentially going to blame you for all the problems you have, and they're not going to work with you as a team. And so you would want them to say something about, I come in and all the students are actively engaged in learning, and maybe they reference differentiation, or maybe they reference specific content, or maybe they reference like the mood or the feeling of the classroom, or maybe they reference when I talk to a student, they say this about you and it's more relationship based, or it can even be rigor based, or it can be the learning expectations are clearly outlined and the kids know they have a purpose for what they're doing. Versus
basically everything except for behavior.
Yeah. If they talk about how you aren't referring kids to the office, or you're managing behaviors independently.
That's a bad sign? That's
a bad sign.
All right, I'm ready, because I don't think I can remember any more going into my interview if you tell me more.
No,
so
that's a
lot.
Full? I feel like that's a lot, but I just want to reiterate, it is so much better to sub and find that right fit building than it is to take a job and have it be the wrong fit, because it will lead you to quit. It will lead you to quit, and then you've lost something you could have potentially loved if you just started at the right school. Okay. Good.
We're summing up the theme of this episode is don't burn yourself out by jumping into the wrong opportunity.
Yeah, acknowledge you're a seedling and you need fertile, rich soil. Once you're a strong, hardy old plant, you can dive in and help those challenging schools.
You can be a great big tree with big branches that block out all the light from all the other seedlings and keep anyone else from growing in your place.
All right, Jared, recap us.
Picking the right school for me, like you just got done saying, you gotta think, I just got my degree, I'm eligible to get a job, I'm gonna sign up for the first thing I can get because I need to start paying student loans off. No. Now is the time find the right place, get into the school where you're going to be teaching, or if it's a big district and you can't be promised a certain school, get into a sample of the schools so that you can know what it's like. You're going to observe that the school feels relaxed in a certain way. It could have high energy, but it's not on guard. It feels like a home and not like a hospital. You want a positive intensity or feeling as opposed to a negative one, and you'll just be able to detect it in the halls or the rooms, right?
Yes.
Don't worry about like facilities or equipment a bunch unless you're teaching a class like chemistry or music or art, and you know that that's a make or break thing, whether you have the things that you need.
Or the budget that you need.
Or the budget that you need. Mm-hmm. In elementary, either way, it's good. You want to try and measure parent engagement, because if parents are engaged, it's going to be a ton easier. Mm-hmm. In elementary, the way to measure parent engagement is to see how active the PTO is. And secondary is to see how engaged parents are with things like concerts and sporting events.
Yes.
The eye of the fish is the support staff, because they're not tied down to it like long-term teachers are. If things are bad, they'll leave. And so try to get a sense of how long like associates or janitors or the lunch staff and people like that have been there. Because if the school is rotten, there'll be high turnover.
Correct.
In the interview, ask the principal what their best day looks like. And you're looking for something like in the classroom or with the students, because they need to be engaged at the right level, that they're not micromanagers, but they're also not just someone who only knows what's brought to them in their office or their meetings.
Yes.
And then ask them what you being successful looks like to them. And you're looking for basically anything except for behavior stuff. If the answer to that question of what would make you successful as a teacher is managing behavior, that's a really bad sign.
Even though that's probably true.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be their focus.
That shouldn't be what defines you as successful. They should know you're going to be more work for behavior stuff just because it's your first year.
And finally, if you get a chance to talk to the kids, ask them what they think of the principal if it's smallish, or their like administrator that's in charge of them if it's bigger. Yes,
they should know who they are, and they should talk like they respect them or like them. And if they don't, they will give you you'll get more out of that question than you ever thought you might.
I remember in my high school, we had vice principals that were almost like pure disciplinarians.
Yes.
And no one liked them. But that's okay. That's not a problem, right? Or is it?
It kind of is. I don't think that that's how it should be. And like, if you had shown me a bunch of pictures and asked me in high school who our principal was, I don't know that I would know.
Yeah, I kind of remember, but I remember the vice principal that went around, whose like purpose was to see who parked in the wrong place.
Yes, I remember that one too. And that's what the kids will tell you. They'll be like, well, but they shouldn't. I have been in high schools. I have been in large high schools, and the kids did know who the principal. And
that's a better sign.
It doesn't take much for a principal to be visible and yet still do the meeting in managerial. I mean, it's no different than probably your job. Like, your boss's boss. You should feel like you know who that is.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then what are they doing?
I do. And he's just a great guy. If he's listening, promote me. So, right. I like this. I thought this was going to be a bunch of nonsense.
You say that almost about every episode.
Well, it's because you're good.
But like, even as a parent, I feel like this can help you figure out if a school is a right fit too.
Yeah.
Like, all of these things a parent could ask.
Right.
And it would really let you know a lot about what you're walking into.
Well, thank you for sharing it with me.
Yeah, thank you, Jared.
Thank you, Jonna. Jonna, do you get questions from listeners ever?
Yes, we do.
How do those listeners send you questions?
They send us an email.
Where does that email go?
teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
But wait, what kind of 4? How do I do 4?
All of the 4s. They can do a number 4. They can write the word FOR, or they can do FOUR, even though that one doesn't quite make sense.
Well, perfect. teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
Yes.
Thank you, Jonna.
Thank you, Jared.
Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life.